MZTV.
Good morning, everybody. My plan was to publish part 2 of Antioch, Paul confronting Peter to his face. I wrote a little historical fiction there, and I ran part 1 on Wednesday, and many of you gave me some great comments on that. Thank you. I know there are others who would rather I just stick to the literal word of God. Well, I do that 99.5% of the time, but it's kind of fun for me to write that once in a while. It really helps me flesh it out. I think it makes it real. So I enjoy doing it. It took a lot of time, 8 hours to edit that 30-minute video on Wednesday, and I thought I'd have one ready. I was just wiped out. I couldn't do it yesterday. That's why I published a talk from the Nebraska conference. I hope you enjoyed that. I haven't seen the comments yet. I've been busy working on part 2, but I'm not going to get it done. Thus this video. But I got something special to tell you today. I'm going to give you a little account of something that happened in 1984. But you're also going to have a treat on Saturday morning, because on Saturday morning I'm going to publish a ZWTF. That's right. I know how depressed you all get on Saturday. Well, we're not going to hear from Zender. Of course, I run the classics. If you don't know this, every Saturday I run a classic. But you wouldn't know it unless you're subscribed and you get my emails. If you're not subscribed, go to martinzender.com. Scroll down a little bit. On the right-hand side of the page, you'll see subscribe, and you get some free material. You will get a free copy of What is a Believer, and I think you get audio with that. So sign up now. Operators are standing by. But Saturday, I'm gonna, if all goes according to plan, that doesn't always happen. Saturday, I'm going to publish part 2 of Paul and Antioch confronting Peter to his face, which I love that account. I just love it. And so like 8 years ago, I wrote some historical fiction on it. You know, a very plausible, if you ask me, very plausible scenario I play out for you. I think it really helps bring these things alive. Not everybody likes it, but you know, you can't please everybody. I try. Actually, you got to please yourself first. You really do. That's advice for all of you out there. But I think you already know that. Thank you to Denise Snyder. I got 2 giant boxes today from Denise Snyder. Let me publicly thank you for all those cereal bars and the giant bag of peanuts and giant bag of walnuts. And so thank you very much for that. I have enough to supply an army in a war, but it'll serve me well for a long time. Thank you very much. And to all of you who have sent little care packages to me, it really warms my heart. It's a great little treat for a weary evangelist. I am a weary evangelist, that's for sure. But on we go, because we don't have much time left. I'm not about to stop running on the last lap of the race. This is the part of the race that separates the men from the boys, for sure. And so gonna finish leaning into the tape. In 1984, I bicycled across the United States with my wife. Don't be confused now, because I bicycled across the United States twice. Once solo in 1980 from Los Angeles to Boston. And then 4 years later, namely 1984, with my wife from Los Angeles to Ocean City, Maryland. Well, we ended up bicycling. We ended up bicycling through Washington, D.C. And I was given a contact there. It was a girl I had worked with at friendly restaurant. I used to cook at a restaurant, if you can believe that. I was a breakfast guy. I cooked breakfast at Friendly Restaurant in Canton, Ohio. I did that for a year, and that financed my 1980 bicycle trip. But a girl I'd worked with there had a sister that lived in Washington, D.C. Her name was Joan Stockdale. She was married to a guy that apparently had graduated from my high school, but he was older than me, and so I didn't remember him. His name was Jack Stockdale. And I didn't know anything about them until my wife and I arrived in Washington, D.C. And from D.C., we were only one day away from finishing a 105-day, 3,450.2 mile bicycle trip. So we were going to finish, I think we spent maybe 3 days with these folks, and we were one day away from finishing our epic voyage. But we found out that these people were hardcore Christians. I told this story years ago. It's been a long time. Many people haven't heard it. But even if I retell something, I always give new details. I'm always seeing it from a new perspective, and probably even more entertaining the second time around. But ladies and gentlemen, I have a confession to make to you. I felt the pull of organized religion, and my wife, listen to this, had to pull me away from it. Here's what happened. These people were big in politics. They were trying to, maybe bring a kingdom of righteousness on earth through their Christian activities. And they were going to march at an event. It was a pro-life event. Now, I don't march. I'm not a campaigner. I have my views. I'm a pro-life guy, of course. But I'm not into protesting. I'm not into any of that. So they asked us if we wanted to join them in a protest because Walter Mondale and Ronald Reagan, Reagan was running for re-election. This was September of 1984. Reagan was running for re-election, and they were both going to speak at the Italian American Club. And Mondale's running mate was Geraldine Ferraro. I think she loved killing babies. She just loved it. And they were, kill the babies platform, I think, the Democrats. But Reagan was a pro-life guy. And the reason I went to this thing is I wanted to see Ronald Reagan. I'd never seen a president before. So that's why I went. I had ulterior motives. So I went to this protest, and there were probably 50 Christians there. And they were marching around with signs, and the whole idea was to attract the news people. And sure enough, they had the local TV station had news cameras there. And if you can believe this, somebody shoved a sign in my hand and told me to just follow all these people and march around in this circle. I felt like a complete idiot. But if you can believe this, I, Martin Zender, marched in a Christian protest with a anti-abortion sign. All the while keeping an eye out for the black limousines that were arriving at the Italian American Club. Again, I had ulterior motives. Well, I took a half a lap in this ridiculous protest, and I couldn't take it anymore. And I remember somebody passed by us, and they flipped us the finger, an anti-Christian person. Now I realize, hey, that person has more of the Spirit of God than the people marching around, because they realized that, Christians are a bunch of hypocrites. So anyway, the Christians were very gracious. I'll never forget this person walking by. It was a woman, and she walked by, and she just gave everybody the finger. I mean, it was full mast. It was just, really up there. I didn't know anybody's finger could get that long, really. It was just amazing. And the Christians, God bless you, God bless you, God bless you. Well, it was nice. Yeah, you're supposed to bless your enemies. So they did it. I think I flipped the girl back. I don't know. No, I just watched the proceedings. So the evening wrapped up, And Jack Stockdale had a talk with us afterwards. He said, you know, when I used to go to football games in high school, I would yell at the football games. And he said, why should I be more excited for football than I am for Christ? And I got to tell you, Stockdale at this rally was a crazy man. He had a megaphone, and he was just, Mondale no, Ferraro no, Mondale no, Ferraro no. He was a rabble rouser. He was crazy. I wanted to get as far away from this guy as possible. But the thing was, see, there was a group and they were all connected. And the hardest part of this job is that I have to do it alone for the most part. I mean, my sister's in Canton, she gets to show to you. She's a big help, don't get me wrong. But generally, when it comes to producing the content, I'm a solo act. And it's the hardest thing about this job. It's very lonely. This is not a pity party for me, but if you want it to be, okay. And Jack was talking about how he could use a man of my intelligence, my wit, my writing ability to make a difference. And let me tell you something. I like big cities. And I was in the nation's capital. And we watched the news that evening, and sure enough, there we were marching around like a bunch of idiots. It was a good cause, but... And there's Jack on the news. He was all excited. Let's watch the news. Come on, let's watch the news. He was all excited, just like a kid at Christmas, watching himself on the news. I wasn't into that. But what he got me with was being a part of an organization that would herald Christ. I was always interested in heralding Christ. See, I've always had that in me to want to do something for Christ. But this, and I thought for a second, actually for more than a second, that this could be it. Anyway, listen to this. They asked us to move to Washington, D.C. to be a part of this organization that was going to make a difference in the world and herald Christ to the nation. Make the U.S. a Christian nation. I got to tell you, I felt the pull because I wasn't too keen on moving to Greenwich, Ohio. This is where my wife was from, and it was definitely the country, let me tell you. And so I was pulled. And after Jack had given us this pep talk and sent us off to bed, my wife and I had a very serious conversation. And I was telling her, I said, I think this will be exciting. Just think we could get an apartment and be in a big city, part of a group, part of an organization. And she was like, no, I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. Oh, come on, Marcia, it'll be great. She said, you're no Jack Stockdale. I said, well, thank you. I appreciate that, but I can change the world with pamphlets or with literature, with articles. I could do something. But just to be a part, just the pull for me was being part of a group, working toward a cause together. That was the thing. The best times I've had in this work is doing radio in Cleveland in 1999 with 5 other people, with Dan Sheridan in Chicago and in Indianapolis. I love working with people directly. Those are the high times. But for the other 99.9% of the time, it's a lonely trudge. It's drudgery, and you have to do something to inspire yourself. You constantly have to motivate yourself, remind yourself how great this is, how important it is. And I always do that. I'm not going to say I don't have a problem doing that. It's hard sometimes, but I don't have a problem doing it. But it's just not fun, okay? It's not fun. Well, cooler heads prevailed. My wife prevailed upon me. She said, this just isn't us. This isn't us, you know? We're quiet people. godly people, and you know these people they don't know the truth. Yeah, you got that right. So she prevailed upon me. We finished the trip, bicycled to Ocean City, Maryland. We flew home, and get this. And we moved into her grandma's sister lived in an old house, but they had both gone to a nursing home, and so this old farmhouse was sitting abandoned. Marcia's grandma said, "Would you two like to live here rent free for a year and then see if you like it, and then maybe you can buy the house on land contract?" Well, that was kind of an attractive offer for a couple people who didn't have any money. So I said, yeah. This was 1984. I remember watching the election on a black and white TV set, really tiny little box TV set downstairs at the house. When we did move in, I watched Reagan win 49 states. Can you believe it? Landslide, 49 states. Mondale no, Ferraro no. Mondale no, Ferraro no. But guess what happened? 2 weeks later, who came to visit us? Jack and Joan Stockdale. Yeah. Thought they came just because they liked us. No, it was a recruiting trip. They were after us. The sales job was on. And I'll never forget this. There's Joan Stockdale, the sister of the girl I'd worked with at Friendly Restaurant. And she was in our house, in the middle of nowhere, basically. And I'll never forget this. She stood by the window and she was looking out the window with her arms folded. And she said, loud enough to make sure I heard it, she said, "You know, I can see how people would want to live in a place like this if they weren't interested in serving the Lord." Ooh, ouchie. Ouchie, Joan. Really? And I thought about Moses in the wilderness for 40 years being prepared by God to talk to a burning bush and to go to Egypt and tell Pharaoh, "Let my people go." Well, I realized then that we had made the right decision not to move to Washington, D.C. And I saw the heart of these people, that they thought the only way you could be an effective influence for God is to live in a metropolitan area and march around with signs and scream through a megaphone. Well, by the grace of God, He has given me a megaphone, not a literal one, but He kept me in the wilderness and He taught me there. And I grew in wisdom and knowledge of God and Christ. And God began using me in His own way, and He continues to do so. I don't know what happened to Joan and Jack Stockdale. If anyone happens to see them on any Christian television shows, let me know.